I'm going to pick up on the point that was actually raised by the gentleman on the floor there about incentives. And if we look at where we are currently in South Africa, to your earlier points, we're still in that chain economy, and we need to incentivize to go to a full circular economy. So how do you see us doing that? I mean, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is, Michael. Is this thing? Oh, yeah, it is. And I think there isn't an easy answer to that question.
I don't think your microphone is on at the
moment. Is it on? Are you
there
hearing me?
There we go.
So there is no easy answer. And I think we need a basket of different initiatives or enablers. And I think just based on what Dr. Jones was talking about in Europe, where they have legislation in place, the plastic tax is now enforced in Europe. Mm. And, the question is, would something like that work for South Africa? And, it's not easy to answer, but we need an enabler, we need a pull to develop the circular economy, and I think all the different players in the value chain have an equally important role to play. While we depend on government, to come with these policies, taxes, tax rebates that incentivizes industry. There's also the need for brand owners. We spoke about the targets that are in place. Those are because we always say that the brand owners are the channel captains of this industry. It's only when decisions are taken at that level that the rest of the value chain follows suit. So we need a pull, and it needs to come, I think, along the value chain. Mm. But I think the comment that was made earlier about how do we create value for plastics? And in other parts of the world, we know there is a deposit return scheme, for example, for bottles, where the price of the water bottle will be higher, incentivizing myself as a consumer to come back to the store to get that rebate back. Mm. So there's a variety of different measures, I think, that needs to be collaboratively developed.
Right. I worry just on that point around what are the policy levers at government's disposal, and we think about the demand-side interventions. And the plastic bag tax is the one that is discussed over and over in South Africa as an example of a tax that was introduced to change consumer behavior. It really didn't have that effect, even though Treasury said it was there to change consumer behavior. And we have this idea in South Africa that we can't ring-fence taxes for a specific purpose to then feed back into initiatives that will help be seen to develop innovation in terms of recycling and a broader, more sustainable solution. It just goes into the central maw of the fiscus, and as we know, government scratching around for money. So I call me a cynical financial journalist, but I would hate to offer an opportunity for government to introduce a new tax that I don't think would drive behavior change at the end of the day. If we look at this issue of decoupling from finite resources, how do you see that playing out?
That's another tough question. And I think, it's something that's going to happen over a period of time. It's more a long-term objective. And it's not going to be a switch that we suddenly can just put on. So it's a transition. Mm. And when we look at our own environmental impact of our own operations, we know the biggest contributor currently is our Scope 2 emissions, which is the electricity and steam that we consume for our operations. So a quick win for us would be to investigate alternative energy sources. And that is why we've now earmarked a PV project in our Sasolburg site. And I think if we can get that right, it will make a significant contribution to reducing our greenhouse gas emissions, and thereby reducing our dependency on finite resources. So when we're speaking about finite resources, we're not just speaking raw materials. Mm. Currently for our business, I think electricity is a huge contributor. But then in terms of renewable feedstocks, there's various opportunities, but all of these are still at an early stage of development. They're still at a technology demonstrator phase, pilot scale, and we are having engagements with various technology partners. For example, we know that the agricultural sector is looking, if you look at the sugarcane industry, they're looking for diversification of feedstock. But that value chain still needs to be developed. And we have in engagements, for example, with the agricultural sector, with the sugarcane industry, to see what are the opportunities and what can ourselves, as a polymer producer, what value can we add. There's other opportunities in terms of carbon capture and diversification into chemicals, and that will allow us to decouple from our finite resources. Dr. Jones spoke about chemical recycling. This is an opportunity which is still further down the line in terms of South Africa implementing chemical recycling, but that would be an opportunity to decouple from fossil feedstock, because now we would have a feedstock that is recycled and can be used indefinitely. So in terms of our strategy as Safripol, it is forward-looking. It is a 5 to 10 year and actually beyond trajectory. But we need to start those engagements now if we are going to move forward.
I mean, it's a process once again, and you've said, your commitment is lower carbon at this stage. In the development of the strategy now that you've been working on for the better part of the last 12 months and some change, what kind of interactions have you had in the marketplace with your customers down the value chain? Just take me through the process that went behind what is obviously a very well thought out, very carefully considered sustainability strategy.
Yes. So we've had engagements with value chain partners across the industry. And if I can just start right at the end, we've had engagements with retailers, we've had engagements with brand owners, converters, obviously, as well as government. So, all of these different engagements, the purpose has really been to get alignment, but also to position Safripol such that we are relevant. We are here to serve a market. And that pull, as I said, is coming from the brand owners and the retailers. And we play a critical role in becoming an enabler for them to meet their targets. So much of the discussion has been in terms of the brand owners' targets. What are the requirements? What are the challenges and the gaps in the industry? And where can Safripol play a value-add role? And we've workshopped the strategy internally, externally. We've met with specific PROs. We even, conducted quite a comprehensive SWOT analysis of the industry. So it was a sustainability SWOT to look at what are the mega challenges and what are the opportunities that can be unlocked for South Africa.
Yeah, and I think on that point, sadly, we have reached the end of our time, and because we are doing a virtual and an in-person event, I think we've got to stick to our time. So Vashni, thank you very much. I'm sure we'll pick up on this over the course of this evening and into tomorrow as well.
Yes.
And it just, to come back to the issue around how we price this resource that is waste, there is a lot of innovation happening in the space. Just the other day, I came across a startup called Imagine Earth that is working on vending machines where you can drop off your plastic waste, and they've tied in with other partners that give you credits, and they derive a specific value from the interaction that the consumer has at the vending machine. So there are ways around the challenge of how we price and how we find value in this waste stream, but it will require a lot of creative thinking, specifically in an environment where we see the oil price where it is at the moment. And with that, from me, Michael Avery, thanks so much for coming to the day one of Safripol Sustainability Summit. Day 2 up tomorrow, and we'll see you here bright and early tomorrow morning. I've looked at the load shedding schedule. Don't worry, I think we're out of the woods tomorrow. Drive safe, folks.